I wanted a big gun. I wanted a Thomas. I wanted a Peter. Someone who was in the Bible a lot that Jesus really loved. But when we were choosing what disciples we'd get for this To the Top Sweatcast about apostles, I got John, because all the big ones that I thought were taken. And I did a little bit of research because I didn't think I knew anything about it. But John in the Bible is a son of Zebedee and brother of James. He was said to be a brother of Jesus, brother in the terms that he was a relative. So his mother was Mary's younger sister. So that's the relation between James and Jesus. So John in Scripture was known as the beloved disciple, which is mentioned a lot throughout the Gospels and stuff like that. He is also, the authorship isn't 100%, but he is said to have written John 1, or 1 John 2nd and 3rd in the New Testament. They were epistles, and he also was said to write the Gospel according to John and Revelation according to John. So this is pretty important. I mean, if you look biblically, the Gospel according to John, you have one of the greatest prologues with, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then sooner he later goes and says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. I'll later explain these further on, but he has such an eloquence in his words and an eloquence in his writing. So John, after Jesus died, he was in charge of two things. Jesus said, my beloved disciple, I need you to look after Mary Magdalene and Mary, my mother. So for the time after when Jesus had died, the beloved disciple had looked after Mary, his mother, until Mary had passed away, had moved on into heaven. After that, he was sent to do mission work with Mary Magdalene. He had gone to Rome and to Greek islands, and when he was in Rome, one of these greatest things happened. When he was in the Colosseum, he was supposed to be put to death. He was supposed to be martyred. But the amazing thing is, when he was supposed to be put into a tub of boiling oil, he was put in and he was left unscathed without a single blemish on him. It is said, it's not certain, but it is said that everyone in the Colosseum converted to Catholicism or Christianity, which is truly unbelievable. It's like Jesus, all the other disciples were to be martyred, but Jesus had a different plan for John, and John was not supposed to be martyred. John also lived to a very old age. He was the only apostle to not be martyred. He said he was lived into his 90s. He died around 100 AD. So this huge miracle that happened in Rome, what happened? The Romans were afraid. They were scared. So what they did was they banished John outside of Rome into a small island in Greece. And what happened, this is when he wrote his epistles 1, 2, and 3. And I'm actually going to quote one of his epistles right now because it is one of my favorite passages. It's in 1 John. If you want to look it up, it's 4:18. It says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and he who fears is not perfected in love. John knows his scripture really well. He establishes that love is perfect. And if God is love, God is perfect. With God, you can do all things. He had so much faith that he didn't even have a blemish on him when he was trying to be boiled in hot oil. That is truly remarkable. After writing these epistles, John, traveled again around Greece, around Jerusalem, stuff like that. And he was also known for having his dreams and his revelations. Hence, the final book of the Bible, Revelation to John. This book has to do a lot with the apocalypse and the end of the world. It's truly a remarkable book. It is very, very difficult to interpret and to understand. But he opens it up saying, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his servants what must soon take place. And he made it known by sending his angel to his servant John. So what John is just saying here was he was made known the revelations through an angel that God sent him. So it is jam-packed with certain things. I can talk for years about the revelation to John. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. But I highly encourage you to read it. The Catholic Church also has great interpretations and explanations as to what revelation means and how it strengthens our faith and it shows so much about our faith itself. The last thing I want to touch upon, when it comes to the Gospel according to John, it is different than all the other synoptic Gospels, so Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It is so different because although he wrote it later on, he was able to write with such eloquence. Because when he was in Greece, the one thing that they had difficulty with was, if Christ had come to earth when he was born, was there not a Christ before? And John said, no, there was a Christ before Jesus came to earth. The Christ that was here before Jesus came to earth was the Word, as he has his famous prologue, as I said before. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He said that right off the bat because the Greeks needed to understand that Christ had been here before Jesus had finally come. And then he says, when Jesus was born, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. Full of grace is a little small section of what we know as Catholics as the Hail Mary. So within these letters and these Gospels and these revelations is a lot of jam-packed eloquence through words, but John didn't only use words. He lived it out. He was an ideal, he was a great apostle. He was the beloved apostle. So my message to you now is to read the Gospel of John, read Revelations, read the epistles, get a lot out of it, because what John says is truly remarkable. It's a lot about love, and it's a lot about, answers that we really, really look for. And what I want you to do is, research it, look online, look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church if you don't understand certain things, because it is really difficult. Also, when reading it or upon reading it, don't just bring it in, don't just absorb it, live it, show it, evangelize with it. That is what John wanted to do. And the most important thing is live your faith, because if you're not living it, then, some days you would even be able to overcome a big pot of boiling oil in which people would be evangelized and turned to Christ with.